Hi, my name is Loretta Collins. I'm a professor in the English department in the College of Humanities at the University of Puerto Rico, Río Piedras Campus, where I teach courses related to creative writing, the Caribbean experience in literature and culture, and the medical humanities. I'm also a published poet. I have two collections of poetry, the first titled The 12-Foot Neon Woman, and the second, which came out this last year in 2018, Recantations, both published by People Tree Press in Britain. My message today is about a very exciting project that is taking place here at the university, a first for Puerto Rico. It is the creation of the first Center for the Book in Puerto Rico, which will be housed here at our Lazaro Library. The project is the wonderful initiative of Luisa Vigo Cepeda. She is a professor in la Escuela Graduada de Ciencias y Tecnologías de Información y la Biblioteca de Ciencias Bibliotecarias y Informáticas del Sistema de Bibliotecas here at the university. She is also the executive secretariat of ACRIL, the Association of Caribbean University Research and Institutional Libraries. The Puerto Rico Center for the Book will be the 53rd Center of the Book to be affiliated with the U.S. Library of Congress, and it will be launched here at the university on January 25th, 2019. At the launch, we will be so honored to have with us the Poet Laureate of the United States, Tracy K. who will be speaking and reading from her work. At the launch for our event, I want to tell you something about our guest speaker. She is an amazing U.S. poet. Feels like a once-in-a-life chance to have her come visit us here in Puerto Rico. She already has a readership here amongst the writers, and as I've been talking to other writers in the island, I'm kind of amazed and surprised that so many of us love and know her work. So if you don't know her work yet, Tracy K. Smith, the U.S. Poet Laureate, she's now in her second term as Poet Laureate. She's an award-winning poet. If you don't know her work yet, the launch for the Center of the Book on January 25th is the perfect moment to get to know her work. I have two of her books here, and I want to say just something about these books to entice you to come join us for the launch. First, I have, and both of these books would have a special connection, I think, for Puerto Rican readers because of some of the ground that they cover and some of their approaches to the material. The first book I have here, she has 4 books, but I'm going to be talking about 2 of them, and her 2 most recent. So Life on Mars, let's see, publication date is 2011, and here in Puerto Rico we have a very strong society for astronomy that the people of all ages can participate in. My daughter and I have gone to many of their events. We also have the Arecibo radio telescope. So thinking about, from our location here in the Caribbean, how we're related to the cosmos and the universe is something that's part of popular culture in Puerto Rico. In this book, Tracy K. Smith covers a lot of topics, but one of the first half of the book has a lot to do with thinking about our relationship to the larger universe. There are wonderful poems about David Bowie and the 2001 Space Odyssey film and things like that. But her father was one of the people to work on the Hubble Space Telescope. And several of these poems give honor to him after his passing for the work he did and what it was like to grow up in the household where this project of building the amazing Hubble Space Telescope was going on. Another poem that's really quite of note in this collection is one in which several of these poems, I have to say, are poems of witness also. she witnesses some of the atrocities that happen in the U.S. that make you question what it means to be an American and what the values are versus what the conduct sometimes is by members of that society. So one of the poems looks at victims who've been murdered, and they are writing from the other side postcards to their murderers from famous national monuments, a kind of wish you were here postcard. And they're very simple little postcards, the kind of postcards you might write if you were going on vacation and telling people wish you were here. It's a generous poem. It's not a totally forgiving poem, but it makes you feel something for these people of all ages who prematurely lost their lives. So Life on Mars is a book that would appeal to us, I think, a lot in Puerto Rico because of that connection that we do have with our radio space telescope. The second collection is just out this last year, Wade in the Water by Tracy Smith. In both of these books, she talks about subjects that are related to book culture and libraries. In the first book, she has a part of a poem that is about her father and about his work on the Hubble Space Telescope, where she's imagining in a little rural area a small public library where everybody chews on the pencils and books are circulated freely to everyone. In this collection, Wade in the Water, Tracy Smith dives into the archives herself. She becomes quite a researcher, looking at documents of all sorts and trying to experiment with the form of poetry. She includes found poems and what we call erasure poems. With an erasure poem, you take an existing text and eliminate parts of it to bring out what is most impacting and to rearrange it in your own way, to let it speak a new truth as you see it. So in this collection, for instance, she has done an erasure poem on the Declaration of Independence. And one of the most striking sequences in the book is a sequence she does by which she takes, the poem is called, I Will Tell You the Truth About This, I Will Tell You All About It. And this poem is composed entirely of letters and statements of African Americans who were enlisted in regiments during the Civil War. And the letters or statements are either by soldiers or their wives, widows, parents, and children. And the purpose of these letters were to try to get their pensions as soldiers and the difficulties they encountered in trying to receive those pensions. But in those letters, they also are telling the stories of their lives. Sometimes our history is buried in archives and only specialists see those documents. So one thing a poet can do, like Tracy Smith has done, is to go into those archives and let those voices come out in a new medium so that we can get a better sense, a revised sense of what our history is by reading. Poetry is a kind of compressed form. It's not, a poem is not a 325-page history text. But still, in the small space that poems usually occupy, they can powerfully address these lost moments of history, and that's what she does in this sequence. And she decided to take excerpts and arrange them in her own way, but not alter the words, the original words of these letters, so that these voices are speaking on their own. Several of her other poems do that kind of archival work, or they quote from or take scenarios from the newspaper. So events that happen in the U.S. public that we read about in the newspaper, and they're ephemeral, they come and they go. A poet sees those stories sometimes and thinks, we can't forget this. This is a moment as a culture we need to mark. And I see the importance of this, and I'm going to write about it and put it in my book so that when the next newspaper comes along and we start to forget that, there's a piece of remembrance that's part of our literature. So I think it's really wonderful that Tracy is coming here. I'm very excited about her visit. I hope you'll join us. I want to say just one other word about the fact that she's a poet. The official office associated with the Library of Congress is the Poet Laureate of the U.S., rather than any other genre, rather than fiction, essay, playwriting, because the poet has always been in society the chronicler, the griot, the one who speaks to our times and to our souls. Poetry that's being written now, the great thing about that genre compared to other genres of writing is that there really are no rules. You can speak to every aspect of the human experience, the experience of living in the body, relationships, history, how you imagine the future to be. Anything that has been imagined by humans or dreamed at night can be written into a poem. And the styles of putting those poems on the page, of articulating them when they're read, it's one of the most free literary forms there is. It's freeing to read it, it's freeing to write it, and young people now are seeing that, and more readers of poetry are developing. So if you haven't given it a chance before, you might see what people are really writing right now. So many books are coming out, and Tracy is one of our best.